What's up, everybody? We've got another breaking news podcast for you. If you see me and Kenny together, as you always know, it is breaking news. And today, Kenny, we've got another big one. The last one was Jordan Brown leaving. It appears that Penny Hardaway and the staff have found his replacement rather quickly, and that is Kansas State forward Nae'Qwan Tomlin, who was just dismissed from Kansas State. We're going to go through all the preliminaries of this off the top because the first thing is going to be, why are they going and getting a guy midseason? He's not going to be eligible where he's graduated, so eligibility shouldn't be an issue. He was a key member of the Kansas State team last year that went to the Elite Eight with Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson, averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds, a block, a steal, assists. He does a little bit of everything. 6'10", 210, fits this system perfectly because he can get up and down the floor, great around the rim, shot 50% from the floor last year. So, Kenny, what do we think about this? This is one of those crazy things that it feels like only happens at Memphis with Penny Hardaway.
Right.
Here we go again.
I mean, it's the day and age of college basketball, right? Of college sports in general. How you can lose in the middle of the season and then replace him almost immediately with a guy who is a grad transfer, played in the Elite Eight last year with Kansas State, is now at Memphis. Like, it's just, if you take a 30,000-foot view away from it, it just goes, man, what is college sports at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
Like what are we doing here? But now, man, in terms of just the fit, in terms of Nae'Qwan Tomlin and Penny Hardaway, man, we said it off air, feels to me like this is the perfect fit for what Penny likes to do with his bigs.
Yeah, and I know everybody was excited about Jordan Brown and what he brought, obviously being, the Lou Henson Award winner for the best mid-major player in the country, and that just it didn't work out. He just wasn't a fit for this system, and I don't want to put too much conjecture on what happened and why it happened. Was he not willing to get in the shape that it took to play in this system, or was there just hesitancy to put him in? I don't know. We don't know exactly what was all going on behind the scenes in the situation. All we do
I want to add something. I want to add something to this before we continue to move forward.
Yeah.
There's not a single person that covers Memphis or covers college basketball that ever thought that Jordan Brown wouldn't be a good fit for the University of Memphis.
No, not at all.
There's a lot of conjecture as he's left now. People are like, well, he was never a good fit. Bro, nobody thought
Where was that a few months ago? Nobody said that.
Nobody said that.
No.
Everybody thought he was going to be a good fit. And unfortunately, with the way things play out, he just was not.
Yeah, no, he clearly wasn't. It didn't work out. It was not a good marriage. But now, I mean, you got to give credit to Penny and the staff. Did they, I guess, could you say that they miss on that? We don't know if it's a miss or not because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Obviously, optically, from outside looking in, it is a miss because you brought someone in who had a lot of hype that's not going to contribute at all for the rest of the season. But to go and find his replacement and find someone who at least fits the system better. I don't know if you can stack them up head to head and say that Nae'Qwan Tomlin is a better player than Jordan Brown. It's probably a pretty close argument, but that's not really what this is about. It's about who fits better in this system, who is going to be a better player at the University of Memphis, who is going to make this team better. And that clearly is Nae'Qwan Tomlin. Now, did I think 4 months ago, we'd be saying anything like this? No, it's absolutely absurd that what happened with Jordan Brown and how quickly it crumbled. Right. But at the end of the day, Penny and the staff they found a replacement that should fit this team very well, because I know front court is something that we've talked about since March. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about front court, whether it be, Nick Jourdain being the first transfer, or the Malcolm Dandridge saga on if he would come back, or landing Jordan Brown or DeAndre Williams if he would be able to come back for another year. So the front court has been a topic of conversation for this team since March. And it obviously didn't look the way that we expected it to. We expected this front court to be really, really good with or without DeAndre Williams.
Right.
And Malcolm and Nick Jourdain have been solid, but they just haven't had that centerpiece of the front court. So getting Nae'Qwan Tomlin, a guy at, like I mentioned, 10 points, 6 rebounds, block, steal, assist, like he does a little bit of everything. He's a solid scorer. He's a solid rebounder. He's big, he's long, he's athletic. It's just it just feels like this is getting it right,
Yeah.
and not just getting this, not just getting the addition to the front court right, but getting the front court core group unit, whatever you want to call it, right, because that is a point of strength that this team needs. It feels like they have everything else, and we thought front court was a piece of that. It checked
Yeah.
all those boxes, and it just hasn't been checked. And with the addition of Nae'Qwan Tomlin, I feel like that is checked now. And it obviously, this goes without saying, but just to put it out there, it makes Memphis a much more complete team with a player like this.
No, I agree with you, man. Like, you look at the way, if you watch Nae'Qwan Tomlin highlights, if you watched him last year in that Elite Eight run with Kansas State, like, he's definitely the kind of piece, the kind of big. His skill set definitely fits. If you've watched him, does he not kind of remind you a little bit of DeAndre in the way that he moved,
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
in his ability to like extend out and do things off the dribble and just his athleticism? I mean, he
Right.
seems to be a little more athletic than DeAndre.
That's what I was going to say. A little taller and a little bit more athletic, for sure.
But in terms of just how, I mean, DeAndre saw so much success at Memphis because of the system that Penny runs, allowed DeAndre to kind of eat and do whatever he wanted to do wherever he wanted to do it. And Nae'Qwan can come in and fill that role. Like, I do know traditional basketball pundits and people that watch basketball all the time. When you saw Jordan's tape and you saw the way that he played, you knew that Penny's system was going to have to change a little bit to feature Jordan Brown, right? Like, Jordan's more of a back to the basket, slow the game down, which we thought, honestly, the reason why we thought that was such a good move was because that's one of the struggles that Penny's teams have always had, is in that half court offensive set, having somebody they could feature. And Jordan seemed to be that guy. Well, now it feels like, based on everything that we've seen from Penny in the 6 years that he's been at Memphis, what he likes to do with his bigs, that Nae'Qwan is kind of the guy that can fill that role and play within the system that Penny has always played. And that's that get up and down the floor and run, be super athletic, crash the boards, stretch out if he needs to, all that.
But also just the ability to move. And I think that's what you're saying. But just to to pinpoint that completely is like, Jordan Brown is not someone who's moving a lot without the ball in his hands. And if you look at what DeAndre Williams did and what Precious Achiuwa did and what other bigs that played in Memphis did, what Jalen Duren did, like, you move without the ball in your hands. As a big, you don't just post up down low and wait for the ball, or set a high screen and roll. Like, you move. You constantly move in this system. And Jordan Brown just wasn't cut out for that. And they're just, like I've said a couple of times, they just couldn't find a common ground to make that work. But with Nae'Qwan Tomlin, he is someone that can move without the ball in his hands. Like, you look at what that Kansas State team did last year. Like, they were all predicated on moving and athleticism and just running.
A fun team, such a fun team to watch, man.
Right, just running teams down and having creation from the 4 and 5 spot was a big part of that, and that's what he brings. Now, he's not as good of a 3-point shooter as DeAndre Williams was. We know he had a lot of success, especially last season. So he's not that. But just as far as the movement skills, what he brings around the basket, like, he just seems like he's tailor-made for this team with his ability to get up and down the floor. So clearly a huge addition. Before we jump out of here, Kenny, let's talk about the front court real quick. How do you feel about the front court now with this addition, with Malcolm Dandridge, with Nick Jourdain, with Nae'Qwan Tomlin? What is kind of your assessment of the front court for the rest of the season for Memphis? Because I think the way that this plays out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with him being a graduate, he will not be able to come in until January, correct?
Well, he'll be able to come in, and I think we're still kind of getting confirmation on this, like the exact time frames. But from what I've been told, and this could be wrong, so don't blast me in the comments if I'm wrong on this, but when the season, or when the first semester ends, he then becomes eligible, and the first semester ends on December 17th. Right. So he's eligible right after that time period.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was.
I might be wrong, but
I thought it was like once the spring semester starts, that's when he was able, in January or whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
From what I've been,
Obviously,
we'll
we'll
figure
get
that out.
confirmation on that, and eventually that will be brought to light because no one knows what that stuff. That stuff is always ticky tacky. But anyway, assessment of the front court.
Now, it's interesting. It is just wild to me how much things have changed since the beginning. Like you discussed and you and Gabe have discussed it ad nauseum on the Bluff, the weekly podcast that you and Gabe do. But how we thought that the front court was going to be a strong suit for this team, and um, we talk about it on the offensive side of the floor, but also on the defensive side of the floor. It definitely felt like the teams that some of the more elite teams that the Tigers have played this non-conference schedule were absolutely picking on Jordan Brown on the defensive side of the ball. They were putting him in pick and rolls and just abusing him because he wasn't able to move. And it'll be interesting to see what that looks like now with a guy like Nae'Qwan, right? Like, what does it do for the defense? Also, what does it do for the offense? I mean, I think both of those sides of the floor are going to be impacted. It was interesting and kind of strange to see somebody like Malcolm, who both of us have talked about him for years, how we think he's much more athletic than what he's been given credit for. But based on the previous bigs that Penny has had, Malcolm was never the big athletic mover. He was always kind of the guy who
the enforcer,
right? Like when you have a guy like Jalen Duren, he was able to move in such a way that it just looked different. This year, it has been a wild transformation to see this front court and know that of all the bigs, the centers on this team, Malcolm has been the more athletic mover and shaker. He's also been the enforcer. So it'll be interesting to see with Nae'Qwan like being added to the mix. Like, what role does he fill? And is he a starter? Is he does Malcolm continue to get the minutes, or Nae'Qwan, fill in for him and stop gaps, or is Nae'Qwan the guy that comes in and takes over? I think that it'll be obviously losing Jordan Brown in the middle of the season. It definitely felt like it changed the ceiling for the Memphis Tigers in terms of where they were going to be able to go to, because with Malcolm's injury history, with the lack of size on the floor without Malcolm out there, because as good as Nick Jourdain has been, as a pleasant surprise as he's been, I think for most Tiger fans, it's pretty clear you're not going to be able to roll with Nick Jourdain getting the majority of the big man minutes and be able to go far in the NCAA tournament. You add a guy like Nae'Qwan, who's bigger, stronger, faster, and maybe even more athletic than those two guys, then you say, okay, are things back to where we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year? So I think it just absolutely fills a need. And based on what we know Penny likes to do, upgrades that position for the Tigers halfway through the season.
Yeah, I'll close it on this with the fact that this is a Memphis team that just beat a top 25 team in the country, number 21 team in the country in Texas A&M on the road with no extra pieces, Jordan Brown, Nae'Qwan Tomlin, any of those guys.
Right.
This team is good enough right now today to be a top 25 caliber team. They're not. Once again, the AP poll just came out. Maybe I'm dating this a little bit, but
are they 26?
Do what?
Are they 26th again?
I don't know. I just got the update saying that they weren't in the top 25. But regardless, this is a top 25 caliber team without any extra pieces, with exactly what they have right now. So the addition of Nae'Qwan Tomlin only raises this ceiling, kind of like you're hinting at, the extra ceiling that we thought they had, like the highest potential that we thought this team could have. I think with Nae'Qwan Tomlin, they're back to being that team that has more potential. I think with what they have now, they're a solid top 25 team that could be, around a 32, maybe even a lucky run Sweet 16 team. But with Nae'Qwan Tomlin, it kind of takes that cap off once again, and their ceiling's kind of unlimited with what they have. So,
well, and I think another thing that and just to, I'll finish it out too here. Another thing that's added that I don't think we truly fully understand just yet, because it's not the end of the season, it's not conference tournament or NCAA tournament time, but you got a guy who hasn't played ball for very long, but in his time period at Kansas State was a massive part of an Elite Eight run, right? Like, so you add a guy who's been through that gauntlet also, that
more of that pedigree.
that the Tigers, that not even Jordan Brown brought to the table. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it adds something to the equation there that I think is necessary, that I think raises that ceiling even a little bit more.
For sure. Well, if you are watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. We appreciate you for watching. Head over to bluffcitymedia.co. Check out everything we got going over there, from articles to podcasts to videos. It is the one-stop shop. So we appreciate you guys for checking in, and we will see you next time.